Hey everybody, Casey here with Life Abstract Gaming, and this week we're still in the Netflix queue and looking at the American live-action adaptation of the anime/manga Death Note.
The human whose name is written in this note shall die.
Shall we begin?
Death Note is a manga and anime created by Tsugumi Ohba and Takeshi Obata. It's massively popular and critically acclaimed, currently holding the 10th position on the Ministry of Culture of Japan's list of best manga of all time. The property has gotten numerous iterations created for film and TV, as well as an online miniseries and a musical. Netflix greenlit an American adaptation starring Nat Wolff, and as you can expect, got backlash for the whitewashing of yet another beloved Japanese property. You might remember a very familiar backlash with the Ghost in the Shell live-action movie starring Scarlett Johansson. I previously detailed my thoughts on that film and its pretty egregious acts of whitewashing, but I actually don't feel the same way about Death Note, for two reasons. The first reason is admittedly minor, but there has already been a direct Japanese casted movie adaptation. That wouldn't excuse an American version from doing one and then casting all those characters as white, but my second reason is that this version is specifically set in America with Americanized versions of the same characters. This movie is more inspired by the original than a direct film version, so I can understand liberties and changes being made, though I get that some people might feel differently and I respect that position too. This Death Note story is very different, but uses some of the core aspects of the concept to tell its tale, which is pretty much all you can ask for an adaptation. From this point forward, I'm going to go into the specific details regarding the plot and events from the movie, so if you haven't yet watched it and care, then you can consider this your spoiler warning. The biggest difference between the original work and this adaptation, other than the setting, is with Light, the main character and wielder of the Death Note. While the original Light Yagami was a popular high school student with a genius-level intellect, Light Turner is considerably more average. It's stated a couple of times that Light Turner is supposedly very smart, but it's never suggested that he's an actual genius. Light Yagami's intellect is a large part of the reason he justifies using the Death Note, as a lesser person wouldn't be able to do what he can. Light Turner actually gets sort of forced into using it the first time, and from that point forward uses it for personal revenge and then to impress a girl. Mia, who is a horror-obsessed cheerleader, is drawn to Light mainly because of the power he now has, and we get to see a morbid romance blossom with gruesome deaths serving as the aphrodisiac. I didn't really like this portion of the movie. It reminded me of all the cheap horror movie sequels like Final Destination 7 or Saw 80, and this stuff makes up like the first half hour. It's just bad. It's so bad that I wouldn't blame a lot of huge Death Note fans for just shutting it off and never going back, which I'm certain a lot of them did. But I do think that that would be a mistake, because the story does a very hard course correction with the introduction of Lakeith Stanfield's L. In the anime, L is the anti-Light. He's just as brilliant, but is considered unattractive, odd, and an outcast. Though he's pretty awkward, he's an accomplished detective, and the mysterious killings caused by the Death Note bring him into the picture. Stanfield plays L extremely close to the anime character, and his interactions with the others somehow gives credibility to all the surrounding performances. I can't stress enough how my enjoyment of the movie completely flipped once L's character was introduced. Due to the less intelligent Light, the cat and mouse game between the two characters is pretty one-sided. As L zeroes in on Light, he and Misa soon desperately resort to using L's handler Watari to try and get L's real name. This is where Stanfield starts to stray from the anime character, but I think is believable because the anime L was never put in a similar situation, and it adds the only challenge to closing the case that L had to deal with. Naturally, everything turns chaotic in the closing moments as L is enraged and Light and Mia are fighting over control of the Death Note, with the police hot on their tails. After the climax, Light finally starts to show that he has the potential to use the Death Note in the manner we expect him to, with the final plot twist being that he orchestrated the previous events that simultaneously kill Mia, clear him of suspicion, and erases his name from the Death Note. It leaves the ending open for more, with L the only person still sure is Light and finding evidence of the Death Note himself. I do think there are some major problems with this movie, like Nat Wolff being mostly annoying and hard to watch, but there's a lot of good here too. like Willem Dafoe's Ryuk. This isn't the anime brought to life, but let's not kid ourselves into thinking that that would ever be the case. This movie is a decent interpretation of the Death Note story, and I do think there's potential for a sequel to get more right if it embraces the battle of the minds that's at the core of the Death Note series and stays far away from American horror movie cliches. So, what are your thoughts on the Netflix Death Note movie? Did you hate it, love it, or did you stop watching and want to now give it another chance? Let us know. We're listening.